Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, running on fumes and coffee, as is my colleague, my pal, another cohort of mine, and another brother from another mother, Awan Zach Flash Celadonia. What's going on? Hey, what's on your mug there, man?
Oh,
what you got?
Cafe Conmigo. It's a little coffee shop by me, actually owned by a old high school classmate of mine. We were kind of friends. We had math together. But he bought the coffee shop by my place of work, and it's called Cafe Conmigo. Nice little spot.
Yeah, okay. Like a little promotion there, like free promotion, word of mouth. Like I'm just, trying to get some coffee. It was a very long, stressful game trip and everything else. It's like the right-handed mug. Like, why do they put the logo like on the other side? Like, I can't hold my mug like that, and I'm not left-handed. It's just so. How am I supposed to drink coffee like that, like a T-Rex? Like it just
I thought it was
work.
a plain yellow mug you were rocking there.
Yeah. People probably think that all the time, but no. Like sometimes you could see when I get to the bottom of it, like got the NFL logo on the bottom. Hopefully, I just didn't slurp in the microphone here, but very unlikely set of events yesterday, right? Steelers are back in first place in the AFC North, 2-0 in the division. Very big victory over the Baltimore Ravens, 17-10. They did not get the 17 points in the traditional way that you would think. We're going to discuss all of that. But yeah, if Baltimore wins this, very important tidbit here, something that we didn't touch on, or maybe I didn't fully realize till after the game. They would have been not only 3-0 in the division. Now I knew 3-0, but they would have been 3-0 all on the road, like against Cincinnati, Cleveland, and then Pittsburgh. So very big victory as far as like the pecking order of how things are, because they get a 3-0 jump and then have to play the other three games at home. They're going to be the front runner. Well, all considering they've lost to some bad teams. Some people would probably say the Steelers are one of those bad teams, but enjoy the victory, savor the moment. We've got some things and stuff to talk about. Where do we begin? I'm not even sure. I mean, the first thing is obviously being like an underdog at home. I always love the concept of deferring and putting especially the Steelers defense steps up to the occasion on this one. So they get the ball to start the second half. But I mean, it didn't look like at any point here that the Steelers really had any chance. You know what I mean? The offense comes out first quarter, 2 drives in the first quarter, right? 6 plays, 16 yards. So they actually got like a first down on the very, very first drive. And then 3 plays, 4 yards. And you're just kind of like, well, now we're right back to whatever. At least you got backup punters in there. You've got the Herbig brother, one of the Herbig brothers playing in guard. You got a rookie making his first start with Broderick Jones, who gets tested at some points during this game.
2 rookies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. So, very fun.
I fell for it, Joe. When they got that first down on the first series, I was like, oh, we're back. We're cooking now, baby. Even though Connor Hayward hardly got the first down, I said, maybe things will be different this game. They weren't, but we'll take the win, like you said. 2-0 in the division. That can't be understated. Actually, in the midst of all the emotions, I kind of let it slip my mind that we already beat the Browns. So 2-0 in the division, top of the North. Hard to complain about that kind of stuff, but we'll find a way to, just as most fans have as well, because we brought it together in the end, but the offense was still terrible for 80 to 90% of the game, which sucks to see. You love that they were able to pull out the win. Some players came out big in some big-time moments, but there's still a long-term problem with this team, and that is the offense.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Big time moments. We'll get to George Pickens and the big play later. We're going to cover this, I believe. We'll go quarter to quarter. Like, it's a little easier to do that, even though there wasn't a whole lot, because the Steelers, I mean, they didn't get a 3-and-out to start with the Ravens offense on the field first, but they basically forced the Ravens to punt 6 plays, 34 yards. Not the greatest, but on the second Ravens possession, 7 plays, 59 yards, and a touchdown. And there wasn't any point here where the Ravens faced a third down situation. No third and anything distance, whatever. And that was not looking very good for the Steelers at this point. You're like, are they going to be able to, is this team just going to mow them down completely? You had Justice Hill go to the left, 14 yards. I believe we were talking about this off air. And was that Desmond King maybe that was out of position on that one? Because we finally saw what kind of changes are Mike Tomlin was talking about changes, and people wanted to, bitch and complain all week about, well, he didn't make any changes. The only change they really wanted was to hear that Matt Canada was going to be fired, which we still think could be imminent. He could be let go, relieved of his duties, demoted, whatever be the case.
Facts. If not, he should be.
I mean, yeah. I mean, this still wasn't. This wasn't pretty by any means. You can't. Were you saying this, or was Brian saying this, or did we all say this? Like, you can't just get by making one play or one series. You can't live and die by that, because you see what happens against like the Texans or the 49ers, which, I mean, for all intents and purposes now, we could say with the 49ers, they're smoking everybody. What are they, like on a 14-game consecutive win streak going back to last year? Just absolutely wild. So,
yeah, the Niners game feels a little like unimportant now, because they're just waxing everybody. And yeah, it feels a little dirty after a win when you have to take the negatives and still talk about them. You don't feel like as good as you could, but you, myself, and Brian and others were exactly right. It's not sustainable. The offense is still the same, where they'll fight tooth and nail if you're lucky and keep it close enough that in the end, maybe the 2-minute offense and Kenny Pickett can do something and miraculously pull the game out. That isn't a way you can win football games at a consistent rate in this league. And it really was the one play. I know that there were other positives from the offense. Jaylen Warren had a couple good plays. Kenny, I think of like his 15, 16 completions, there were like 6 or 7 legitimately good throws. So you want to remember those and take those away from the game. But this whole online argument about whether or not Canada called that big play is so funny to me, because you have people going to bat defending this guy, saying he deserves credit for calling that play. Give Canada the credit he deserves for the play call. Okay, he can have the credit. It's one play call over the course of an entire game. That's not anything to be proud of. Okay, it was the execution that pulled off the win. Imagine being Matt Canada, okay? Sorry to put you in that dark space mentally, but imagine being Matt Canada and you go to your next job interview after you get fired from here, and you go in and you say, hey, yeah, I know that my time in Pittsburgh, we were ranked 30th in virtually every category on offense the entire time I was there. But did you see that one play week 5 versus the Ravens? Call me.
Yeah, I know. And that's where we're at. That's why I thought maybe a decision or something was made. There were some arguments about who called that play. I mean, we got Kenny's quote. I thought I had Kenny's quote. I have the John Harbaugh quotes that are up.
You probably do. Yeah. And the players are all media trained. Mm-hmm. We are the Steelers, so we're a buttoned up organization. Nobody on the team outside of maybe George Pickens is going to let it slip that Canada did or did not call that play. They are instructed on what to say, how to act, and what answers to give and not give the media. So some of the Pittsburgh media coming forward saying, no, Kenny Pickett and Jaylen Warren, they said it was Matt Canada's call. No shit, dude. They're not gonna try to stir up any kind of storm or add any more controversy to this locker room that already has a lot focused on the offensive side of the ball. They're trying to keep everything in place for the betterment of the team. But we all can see it. Everybody and their moms know that Matt Canada is just not good at his job. And you can win a game like this and you can put the fans to sleep happy, but most of us waking up this morning know that there's still a problem on this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have a chance to grow. Most of the mainstream media, your national outlets and stuff that were covering this game, talking about how the Steelers came from behind, got the offense to click late, which is semi-true. I mean, even though there were some plays left on the field, but Baltimore left a lot more plays on the field and a lot more points on the field. I don't know what they could be thinking this morning. They got to certainly be licking their wounds. And this is where I was during the week. By the way, Kenny Pickett's quote real quick before I get into this, because I might have one of the worst takes maybe I should do that later. The worst takes. Like, got one where somebody was saying the Steelers were the laughing stock of the NFL, and I'm like, have you looked around the league? There's certainly, they may not be top 5, but including not giving up 70 points right now. Like the Denver Broncos aren't looking very hot. But question was asked, Kenny, can you talk about the touchdown play and where you were going the whole time? And he said, yeah, they went 0. We were preparing all week in these kind of bigger moments that they were going to go 0, got our protection right, gave George Pickens, of course, his route. He went up there and won. Big time player making big time plays in those moments. And I want to see, do I have maybe I have Pickett? I don't know if I have Pickens, if he commented on this too. George, was that you coming out of the huddle on the touchdown? Or you guys check into that? No, we came out of the huddle. So it was already, so you came into the game knowing you would be a big intended target. I knew I would be a big factor, not knowing how big or small a factor it would be. But yeah, I knew I would probably play a significant role for sure. And it's like, well, yeah, duh, this guy, he's one of the biggest, he needs to be a big play target. And you see how he could be a game changer, obviously, by the way this ended up, and the victory, the game winning touchdown. And that's where a lot of people were talking about Pickett to Pickens. They had the call by Bill Hillgrove. It's very cool to see the national media kind of pick up on it. And Pickett's had a lot of other things to say, just about growth, confidence with Kenny Pickett and stuff like that. So check out that interview if you hadn't seen it.
I just noticed in that picture of George Pickens running, it looks like he's wearing Bathe and Ape cleats. The Soldier Boy shoes, are those Babes? It looks like it. The star with the streak behind it. I don't know. That's so funny.
I wonder if here we got a little bit more of I could maybe zoom in a little bit more on this. It's about as good as it's going to get there. So those are pretty sweet. I mean, you're all about swag, so you would pick up on that, especially with the wide receivers. So
my children.
Yeah. And there's going to be some, and we already alluded to this, that that doesn't mean, I thought that a decision, for better or worse, what Matt Canada was already made last week. You're not going to change this. Well, Kenny's banged up. You don't know if he's going to play. You're going to switch to Mitch Trubisky. Why not just change an OC altogether? And we'll talk about some potential candidates with that too. But there's a lot of talk about the reaction from Matt Canada following that play too. And it was like no reaction. It was like, oh, he was real sour grapes or whatever about it. And it was like, maybe he's just relieved. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like fist pump. Oh, you should just get rid of this guy because he's like an emotionless, soulless clown or whatever. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, we're just piling on at this point. But it's possible he was just like out of it and exhausted. And tired, and his non-reaction is what stirred up this whole argument online, and people typing up paragraphs on Twitter talking about, no, it was his play call, or no, it wasn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It was one play call. Like, it won the game, but it's not something that Canada should be hanging his hat on and be like, but look at this, look what I can do. Like, I'm good now,
No, so
it's
bad.
I think it's just kind of like, some people are having fun with it. Other people are taking it seriously, but that's the internet in a nutshell after a Steelers game.
Yeah. And, I was there yesterday. Brian was too. He could attest to, there were a lot of fire Matt Canada chants, and some of them actually changed the fire into a different F word, also 4 letters. So very, very, yeah, I know. Very classy. Stay classy, Pittsburgh. I mean, that first drive was like Najee Harris, right guard, 2 yards, Najee left tackle, 2 yards. And then Connor Hayward's out there, and you're like, I'm gonna give my props. I've been on Connor, right? I've had some things to say, like, oh, I don't really I don't see the value. I don't like always, he's out there. It hasn't always worked out, and he's rookie. What else are you gonna say? Or second year player, I should say, but getting a lot more snaps than he did the year before. And I'll preface it by saying, I was very impressed with how he was used throughout the game in this one, because he stepped up and he came in with some moments. He gets that first down, kind of moving the chains play. What was it? Just like a little 6-yard pass. It's nothing big, but still, he was involved, and having him involved in the game is something you need to do. They finally got Jaren Warren a little more involved in the pass game. I wish they would get Najee a little more involved in the pass game. It's starting to open some things up. I think at some point, I'm trying to find, I can't remember if this was in the first quarter, but there was, they end up punting, and then you have the Justice Hill touchdown. They're down 7-0, and they go 3 and out. And they went looking for some passes just weren't in sync. The run game was only getting like 2 yards a carry. And then Baltimore goes out there and has a 15-play drive to get down to the Steelers' 4-yard line. 15 plays, 64 yards. The defense does hold them to only a field goal. You're like, praise baby Jesus. Maybe they could still get something going with this. You're already into the second quarter, and then the Steelers, they put together a little bit better of a drive here. They have something a little sustained. It was 10 plays, 43 yards, but they don't get any points out of this. Kenny Pickett ends up getting sacked, 3rd and 7, the Ravens' 39-yard line. Arthur Millette, like, oh, where were you? Where have you been, dude? Like, that's just gross. Like, I don't even like the fact that he went over to the Ravens. I get it. He needs a paycheck or whatever. But they took a deep shot during this, right? It was just after they got a conversion, 3rd and 7. Once again, Connor Hayward, 12 yards. Pickett looked deep for George Pickens. Looked like it was maybe overthrown. He may have had him there, but it just didn't sync up, right? And then there was like a little short pass, 3 yards, Allen Robinson. Boo Birds come out when Kenny gets sacked. I think at some point during this, there may have been a pass attempt. It might have been on this sack that he may have been looking, or I think there may have been a pass. I was trying to see if he actually threw one for Darnell Washington, but they almost overlapped. Like Darnell Washington was like in the middle of the field, but he was shorter, a more intermediate route. Calvin Austin was behind him, and like if that ball goes over, he probably couldn't see Austin over Washington. But if this goes over the top, it was a TD, and I don't think Kenny had enough time. I'm not sure it was this exact play or where I didn't get to rewatch the game.
Was that when he threw to Washington over the middle and Roquan Smith like came over top almost too early?
Yes,
I think that was the next drive.
Okay, you may be absolutely right. I'm going to look at this because right after this, Brad Wing punts 39 yards. Brad Wing, good game. You know, we were just talking about this off air too. Like, it was it's promising to see, like, to have a good punt game or good punting. And I know it was only like, it was 39 yards, but he got Baltimore down to their 8. And
Brad Wing came to play. Brad Wing's earned himself some money. He might get a job somewhere else when Presley Harvin comes back.
Man, it's so hard to say because Presley Harvin had been inconsistent. But Presley Harvin had actually been getting the job done too. So it's like, does a guy like lose their job due to injury? I mean, it's a very volatile situation with punters as it is. And Wing is only on the practice squad, and you're only going to be able to protect him for so much. He's already been activated twice. I believe that's the limit. So they can't call him back up again. He's going to need to take an active roster spot. If Harvin, they got a bye week now, so Harvin's got some more time to rest and get ready. But now, what do you do with that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like Wing's doing pretty solid here. He's shown out, and
it sucks that Presley Harvin was playing his best ball right before he got hurt. It's like he finally seemed to get it, and he's finally punting like his college self from Georgia Tech, and he goes and hurts his hamstring or groin, whatever it is.
Yeah, and if he hadn't done so, then he'd probably be out of work completely, or release or injured reserve or something like that. I'm wondering like what might end up transpiring. So that's another transaction to put on this layer because we're calling for Matt Canada to be fired. We'll stick with special teams. We're going to get there again on something else because some stuff that really ticks you off. But the Steelers, it looked like Baltimore was starting to get some chunk plays, 9 yards. Gus Edwards, Mark Andrews found for 13 yards. Then there was no gain, and Lamar Jackson tries to find Justice Hill. He ends up fumbling. Larry Ogunjobi knocks it out. DeMonte Casey picks it up, and now the Steelers have the ball back with about 5.5 minutes to go before halftime. And then again, the Steelers, Kenny Pickett, you get a first down on 2nd and 10. 11-yard pass, George Pickens is like, all right, now we're cooking. We don't have to struggle all the time to get to third down. They're down to Baltimore. They get down to the Baltimore 16 on end round. George Pickens, once again, wide receiver running the ball. Is this where do you want to give Matt Canada a little bit of credit for this? Now when it works, it's like, yeah, this looks good. Most of the time it isn't working. It gets stopped and the Boo Birds would have been out. But now it gets you down on the doorstep. You're almost in the red zone. And Jaylen Warren, you have an incomplete pass intended for Miles Boykin for whatever reason. You have Jaylen Warren loses a yard on a run, and then another incomplete pass by Kenny. And at least the Steelers get on the board, 43-yard field goal with Chris Boswell, give the Ravens the ball back. and they run a this gets all the way down to the Steelers 23. There's some plays here, including within a 2-minute drill. Mark Andrews gets a 14-yard play. Lamar Jackson gets sacked right after that by TJ Watt. They let the clock tick a little bit before the Steelers start to use their timeout. Sets up a 3rd and 18 from Baltimore's 40, and Jackson finds Zay Flowers right in the middle of the field. Yeah, you've got some feelings about that, right? I did too. That was gross.
No excuse. No excuse for that, dude. I was sitting there, I blame myself because I'm sitting there with my girlfriend and she's asking me what's going on. And I'm like, well, we're going to get the ball back here because they're not going to convert 3rd and 18. Shocker, they convert 3rd and 18. And Lamar, I don't know what, I know TJ and Highsmith picked it up in the second half, but Lamar had time to go through his calendar, call his mom, make a sandwich, go through all of his reads, and then decide where he's going with the ball for a majority of that game. The defense rose up in the end, but Lamar had way too much time to throw the ball. And he's athletic, so whenever you give a guy like that time, he can just make more time because he's able to escape pressure and move. And that 3rd and 18 was an encapsulation of just everything that was going wrong with the defense in the first half. I couldn't believe what I saw, that he was able to just take his time, roll left, boop, Zay Jones right there. It would have been good from 3rd and 30, I feel like.
Well, we'll talk about the adjustments made at halftime here in a second. I got some feels about this. I mean, Lamar Jackson then tries to find Mark Andrews and Odell Beckham Jr., both incomplete passes. Baltimore ends up taking a timeout after that one. 3rd and 10 from the Steelers 31. Little short pass to Nelson Aguilar. We didn't call his name very much in this one. And it sets up a 4th and 2. And the Ravens leave their offense out there. And you're like, okay, what's going to transpire here? Are they really going to try and snap this ball? And there's a little bit of like, there's some controversy as Harbs would always have you believe. But they end up snapping the ball, 4th and 2, even though they've got the GOAT, probably one of the only times you could say a kicker is most certainly going to go into the Hall of Fame. Justin Tucker should, unless he has an absolutely abysmal career going forward. And they put up
somebody.
Yeah, they put on another 3. Yeah, you'd have to do something like, like he's prostituting children or something like terrible. You know what I mean?
Give him the OJ treatment.
Yeah, for real. And they end up Lamar Jackson. Like they just look stunned. And I guess the plan was, according to Harbaugh, pulling up his quotes, and he gets asked, and he ends up saying, we were planning on kicking the field goal there. The idea was to run the clock down, not leave them time to come the other way, and then just call a timeout. Smart coaching, right? And then kick the field goal. Of course, you got Justin Tucker. It's a chip shot. Another 3 points. You go in the halftime up 2 possessions, 10 points, 13-3. That's what it should be. He says, we weren't on the same page. They jumped the neutral zone. So he's blaming the referees. And guys thought that we're in the neutral zone, went ahead and snapped it. So that wasn't what we were planning on doing. Obviously, they were trying to draw offsides. You get the 5-yard penalty, plus trying to get a free play. I'm going to call it as it is. This guy's greedy. We've seen it before when he went for 2 and it backfired on him, and then he tries to make excuses. I do think that maybe they had something on page, and that was the whole thing. Let's get the free play. They were getting greedy instead of just don't snap the ball no matter what, hard count, see if you can get him to jump. They got greedy. So end of story. But he was still, we have to get better at operational things. He says Lamar Jackson was surprised by the snap, so that was one of those things operationally we just have to get better at. And somebody
Ravens' mistakes are the story of the game.
Yeah. Oh, it was huge. That was huge. They took 3 points off the board for them. Some boo birds come out, but I mean, what are the Steelers going to do with 13 seconds? They take a knee. They're getting the ball to start the second half, and you're hoping in the third quarter that things are going to go a little bit better. Unfortunately, Zach, they don't start out any better there, but huge fourth and 2. What a bonehead mistake by everybody involved. Your $500 million quarterback or whatever, your long tenured coach. Everybody wants to talk about Mike Tomlin and, Matt Canada and stuff like that. Look at Harbaugh, look at Todd Monken, look at Lamar Jackson. What in the hell was that? That was just garbage. That was bad. That's bad all the way around by them.
Yeah, they see the Steelers colors over there on the Ravens sideline, and something happens to them where they just can't think straight. It's no secret, that Lamar's, Lamar plays his worst ball against the Steelers, which works out for us because we're in his division. And something about the way he plays against the Steelers, and I think Harbaugh's determination to try and beat the Steelers, his biggest rival, it results in sometimes you just catch them sleeping and making mistakes. And it was happening every quarter in this game for the Ravens. Drop passes, bad decisions on down and distance, mental errors. Receivers drop balls all the time. Like, every team deals with drops. And if that's your team, you're allowed to cling to that to cope. I feel like Ravens fans, they can wake up this morning telling themselves, hey, Lamar didn't lose us the game. Our receivers dropped 7 balls. But if you're a fan of a different team, you don't really have room to talk because everybody's team drops balls. So the Steelers lucked out with this win, but they still did enough to earn the right to try and win the game at the end, if that makes sense. The Ravens made mistakes, but so did the Steelers. And the Steelers were the ones who just happened to make less mistakes.
Yeah, the dropped pass is a big part of this game. Obviously, we mentioned some of the drives here that already ended in the first half. Harbaugh had something to say about that as well. Somebody had asked if he was surprised by those drop passes. He goes, I'm not surprised by anything in the NFL. In football, it's just the way it goes, and we keep working on that. I know we'll make those plays going forward. Those are balls that our guys are going to catch. They catch them all the time. The reason I'm bringing up Harbaugh's comments is imagine if this game was the other way around and the Ravens end up, winning the game and the Steelers drop a bunch of passes and leave points on then we'd be talking about all the coach speak and what was Mike Tomlin going to do to make any type of drastic changes at halftime. What were the adjustments? And everybody was just mad they didn't fire Canada. What are the adjustments? What is this team going to do differently? We're not seeing any of it. We're not hearing any of it. Well, one of those changes, if you were sitting there, you're probably wondering, we've been banging our, fist on the desks and everything like that. Finally, I got Broderick Jones in this game by virtue of injury, but Joey Porter Jr. is the guy that needed to be out there. This secondary, we talked about that Zay Flowers play. You got Chandon Sullivan playing in the slot. They were trying to get Desmond King out there a little bit. We're not sure if Desmond King on the right page. Off air, we were talking about that was very reminiscent of Arkilla Witherspoon, not knowing where to be on the big Harry Ruggs. Jeez, I'm saying his name wrong now. Raiders play a few years ago when he was first traded. Everybody's like, oh, this guy's an absolute bum, get him off the field. But what we were seeing is that Patrick Peterson was struggling. That causes Levi Wallace to struggle out there. I think Chandon Sullivan had been struggling. And the adjustment was Joey Porter Jr. ends up coming in, and he's playing on the left side. He played almost the entire second half. Patrick Peterson actually went to the sidelines and was now coming in as the slot corner, and they left Levi Wallace over on the right. And what you end up seeing now was it was almost like a transformation with the way the defense was able to get some coverage. Even if the rookie's going to make some mistakes, you're going to make some mistakes, but these teams need to learn, yesterday, don't test Joey Porter Jr. It's already been proven in prior games, and it ends up coming to fruition here a little bit later. But that was one of the big changes. Also, Keanu Benton, not only named with the starters, but starting in this game. I believe that he played well. They were still having to rotate, but you didn't see a whole lot of Isaiah Loudermilk out there. It was mostly Montravius Adams. DeMarvin Leal was out of this game, still concussion protocol. So it was Ogunjobi, Montravius Adams, Armon Watts, I thought was playing pretty well out there as well. And then, of course, the big boy, the other second-round pick out of Wisconsin, rookie Keanu Benton, I was very happy with. Zach, it looked like the defense, they came around. They gave up 10 points in the first half, and that's all they ended up giving up.
Yeah, the Steelers rookies came through in a big way. It looks like we're all seeing what we thought was going to happen at the end of April a couple months ago when the Steelers came out with what a lot of people said was the best or one of the best draft classes in the NFL. They took their time getting these guys on the field, but Keanu Benton's played well at every turn. Every time he's gotten a chance to play, he's doing a good job. He knows where to go. He plays with power. He's got pass rush ability. He's ahead of his time as a defensive lineman. I think he's going to be a great player for the Steelers. Broderick Jones had his best game. Kenny seemingly, for a majority of the game, had more time to throw. He wasn't getting as rushed as we had seen in games prior. And he gave up 0 sacks, I think maybe 1 pressure or 0 pressures. Jones came to play, and Jones showed what we were hoping to see out of a first-round pick left tackle. And Joey Porter Jr., long overdue, he might be the best cornerback on this team right now. And by that, I mean he is the best cornerback on this team right now. Let him play. Let him play. Every time he's out there, something good happens, whether it's a pass deflection, whether it's an interception, whether it's a guy not throwing his way because he's got his man locked up. All three of those rookies should be playing a majority of the snaps. They all should be starting. Darnell Washington didn't have the best showing. He only got a couple targets, and the one pass, some would say, was a defensive pass interference that wasn't called. But as far as blocking is concerned, I think he did a good job. So that is a big positive you can take away from this game. Aside from the obvious win, aside from the obvious big play to George Pickens, the Steelers rookies look like they're a good class.
Yes, they do. I was looking for your Broderick Jones stats. Obviously, I must have come from PFF, and I had it. I had it until I didn't. Let me pull it back up because
it should be near the top of my page. I retweeted it recently.
Let's see here. It was one hurry and one pressure allowed, and they most certainly did. They tried to bring the house on them. And it felt like, I think, if I go back and look, it was either a third down conversion or it was the play at near the end of the game with George Pickens. But I think it was like a third down maybe on that drive. They brought the house. They overloaded. They had three people coming on that side with Sumalo and Broderick Jones. And Broderick Jones ate, like, it felt like he ate two of those guys. Those guys did not come through or get, like, unblocked. They at least got hit, chipped, moved, disrupted, and it gave Kenny the time to make those throws. Talk about some offensive adjustments after this, because we're going to talk about like the OC stuff too. So continuing on, Steelers did go 3 and out. The Boo Birds were out there because you had a 3rd and 1 and Najee goes left, which is where you should run, but no gain. Patrick Queen gets in there and makes a stop after Najee starts this drive with a nice 5-yard run off the left side, right? Just a 4-yard pass to Allen Robinson. Marlon Humphrey, I should mention, that was his first action back out there this, I believe, the entire season for the Ravens. He had been hurt.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was just finally activated or finally practicing, I should say. But the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, they do get a first down, and then they get kind of stopped. They get stopped kind of dead in their tracks right at the 50-yard line here. And the Steelers get the ball back on their 13. They have like a very small drive, but they pick up some first downs. There's some things that are starting to at least matriculate here, right? Najee has an 8-yard run. They're starting to pick up some yards in the run game here or there, for better or for worse. Short little pop pass, like he's looking for Allen Robinson. He looked for a deep one, and then Kenny comes back and finds Robinson again just for 4 yards. He finds Jaylen Warren for a nice little 10-yard play. Jaylen Warren also in this game with that hurdle that ends up coming a little bit later. He was getting feisty, and they leave him in there, and he was getting hot. I will say this much. There's a lot of argument out there when it comes to Najee Harris versus Jaylen Warren. This isn't a versus type situation. This is complimentary football. I like to think that Najee comes out there and kind of softens everybody up, because he was leading, I think, coming into this weekend, the entire NFL in yards per carry after contact, and which isn't hard to believe because he gets contacted behind the line almost constantly. Is he Barry Sanders? No, he's not. He's not the second coming of Barry Sanders yet, but he doesn't have quite the offensive line or the run game or the play calling that's really been beneficial to get this dude to be like, a perennial 1,000-yard rusher. But I don't think
blocking holds up, he gets positive yards.
Yeah, and I don't think that Jaylen Warren can do this just by himself. I think that they complement each other very well. Warren is a hell of a blocker, but you tend to notice it more. Is Warren like just a smaller guy? I would have to look them up, because Najee just seems like he's a bulkier back. You know what I mean? So maybe
Warren's a little dude.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Najee like misses any blocks, but it also seems like they use Warren more of like a third down back. It reminds me of like Mewelde Moore or somebody like that. Tomlin's gotten back to that, if that's his coaching style. I don't know if that's a Matt Canada thing, but now that they're starting, and even Connor Hayward ends up with some of that. And there's a play call that comes out here. I don't think we're getting to it just yet. This might have been it. Jaylen Warren right end for 6 yards, 1st and 10. Might have been in this spot where they left Warren and Najee Harris out on the field, both of them at the same time. Then they lined up Warren basically as a tight end over on the left side of the formation, brought him across in motion, snapped the ball and handed it off almost seamlessly. And that was very good execution. It could have been that play there. Sorry, I'd have to look at film again and catch it at that certain time. But I found that pretty interesting, that they almost had like the pony formation with both guys in the backfield, the old Madden Pro form or whatever you want to call it, with two guys two running backs in the backfield. We've been looking for that for years. We've been alleged that back with like James Conner was still on the team, that maybe Bell and D'Angelo Williams could have done it, or Bell and Conner, or whatever combination of guys. So it's maybe something else that can go well. Unfortunately, Kenny Pickett gets sacked right after this, loses 6 yards. This may have been one of those zero type things. Because there was something here where this is where they saw it again, and that led to sliding the protections, learning, recognizing, and adjusting, that led to the game-winning play there.
Which is great, because a big critique I've heard of Kenny Pickett from fans and media alike is he's just not seeing what he needs to see pre-snap. So the fact that he ended the game like that, making the right reads and sliding the protection the right way, that's a big positive.
Yeah, the Steelers don't end up getting anything out of this. Kenny Pickett looked for Darnell Washington, short left, 3rd and 10. Brad Wing with a nice 42-yard punt here gets the Ravens. It's within their 20, down to the 18. It was fair catch. Devin Duvernay might not have been his best punt, but he's not going for power there. We had there was like the one punt, I think, with the Ravens where the ball died and you're just waiting for it to kind of roll, and it didn't. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with Gunnar Olszewski here in a second, because man, I've had enough of him. But you go right to this play here, 5:48 left in the third quarter. Deep right, Nelson Aguilar, 30 yards. Steelers challenged the completion. It was the play reversed, and then it was changed to a catch fumble, ball out of bounds, whatever that weirdness was. They get the ball basically in the middle of the field again, and the Steelers don't get charged with a timeout. Like, I've never heard that in my life. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, they explained it on TV. It was because Tomlin was challenging the whole play. So I guess when you challenge the whole play, anything that gets reversed gives you like the win of the challenge. You don't get the result you want. Like, the ball was still completed, but the refs didn't call it a fumble on the field. So when they reviewed it, they saw it was a catch and a fumble. And because they didn't acknowledge the fumble before the challenge, and they did after, they were like, well, it's still a catch, but there's a fumble as well. So Pittsburgh isn't charged a timeout. They don't win the challenge, but they aren't charged a timeout because something in the play was overturned. Not the end result, but they missed something that the challenge pointed out and made obvious.
That is, I don't know, dude. That was just like really freaking weird. Like,
at that point in the game, dude, I was rooting for any victories. Yeah. I mean, we didn't really need the timeout, but I was actually excited. I was like, nice, we got one there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you too. Like, I can't argue it, right? So.
And just tying back real quick, backtrack to Jaylen Warren. I think he has shown that he's right there, like starter quality. The thing is, the Steelers are, I guess, blessed, you could say, with 2 starter quality running backs, and they're very different. You mentioned complementary football. Najee Harris is a battering ram. We all know he's not very fast, but he runs hard. He's a good player as long as blocking holds up. He's versatile because he can catch the ball. But Jaylen Warren is what he is. He's a spark plug. He comes in and provides a spark. If you put too much on that guy's plate, his ability to provide a spark is no more. Now he's supposed to be in there all the time. So I like what the Steelers have been doing with their approach, where it's seemingly a 60-40, sometimes 50-50 split, and they're not opposed to sticking with the hot hand. That's kind of more of a quarterback phrase. But for running backs, there was a point in the game where it was obvious that Jaylen Warren was the best offensive player for the Steelers, not named George Pickens. And what did the Steelers do? They fed him. They kept feeding him. Yeah. And that's good decision-making and good play calling and good distribution of labor from Mike Tomlin and Canada. So I'll give Canada props for that, for recognizing and seeing, hey, Warren's running really good right now. Keep feeding him. It got to a point where they literally got to the point where I think it was 1st and 10, and Warren finally got stuffed for like -2, and that made them stop because they were doing the whole we're going to keep pounding Jaylen Warren here until you can stop it. Well, the Ravens eventually showed they could stop it, and they got away from it. But there was a point in the game there where the offense had something figured out with Jaylen Warren, and if you're going to make that guy start and play a majority way more than Najee, the spark ability just kind of it lessens, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I like what he offers to the offense right now, and he's good at what he offers right now.
I think there's times where I think there's times where Warren struggles just as much. I wish they would have tried something like this. This sounds almost like sacrilegious, but I wish they would have tried this with Benny Snell, because I think Benny Snell, like, it wasn't a guy that you could just bring in. He was not a short yardage back. That was not really his thing. But he's a rhythm guy. You start feeding him the ball, and I think Najee needs a rhythm, and I think Jaylen Warren, I mean, I feel like Jaylen Warren does hit the hole a lot faster, but I also feel like he's an easier guy to tackle, and I still worry sometimes about his ball security. But he broke off the one big run, so he ends up with the bigger average of the 4.4 yards per carry in the game on Sunday afternoon.
And I can explain why it looks like Jaylen Warren hits the hole harder. It's because he's faster.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Najee's no slouch, but 14 for 37, trying to grind out some hard yards there. And they were almost even split in as far as production. 37 yards for Harris, 40 for Warren. Najee had 5 additional carries there. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So I think some dudes that so as we're going through this, the Steelers get the ball back. You had that really goofy like whole play. Alex Highsmith comes in. What a game. There are still people that I've been banging my fist about this dude forever. I will say it. I will scream it from the mountains. I will shout it louder for those in the back. Even I think Dale Lully had a snarky tweet that came out post-game about Alex Highsmith and his ability to get after quarterbacks. He is a very good compliment to TJ Watt. You put too much focus on some of the other guys that are out there, and Alex Highsmith is also going to make you pay. And the Steelers ended up giving him an extension. Some people still didn't realize who he was. You still had idiots in the national media who thought that Marcus Golden getting signed was going to be like, oh, well, here's the guy that's playing alongside Watt. And then in the same breath, these people like blow up people like Jadeveon Clowney. I barely heard his name yesterday, and he's playing for the Ravens. Anybody know that? The Ravens went out and signed Kyle Van Noy. You have some of the clickbait bloggers and stuff, some of the other opposing talking heads that really thought that the Steelers should have went after Van Noy too. Just total disrespect. To put some respect on Alex Highsmith's name. He is also game wrecker. He gets a sack here right after all of this weirdness. So you have a 30-yard play to Nelson Aguilar, and then you go back 14 yards. Then there was also there was a holding call on this, so it didn't end up. Yeah, on Minka. I don't know how legit it was. Couldn't see anything on a replay with it. It seemed like the officiating was somewhere between we're just not going to pay attention to it or we're going to let them play. I can't figure out which was which in this game. As we go forward, Jackson gets sacked here. You end up with a 3rd and 6 from the Steelers 43. They lose 3 yards. They didn't get close enough for Tucker to try like some 80-yard field goal. We need to talk about the inside linebackers and their impact on this game as well, because between Landon Roberts, Cole Holcomb, and Quan Alexander, these dudes played their ass off yesterday.
Who's your best game?
By far. It seemed like everything started clicking, and I'm not going to lie. Joey Porter really started to make some things disruptive. I think it really helped. I mean, if he could ascend from being a rookie to being a corner one, it was like you weren't even sure if he had 2 corner 2s. I was still defending Pat Pete here, but Pat Pete just looked out of place this whole first half. I'm not sure that the nickel corner situation was ever resolved with Sullivan. That's the reason they brought Desmond King in, not just to return kicks, even though that's a thing that he's been known for. But when have you known Mike Tomlin to ever use his DBs to return kicks and punts? He doesn't ever put his DBs out there in that situation. So I think we're going to see more to come. That actually made Levi Wallace look like a competent corner out here, and allowed just those extra few precious seconds, allows everybody else to get home and disrupt Lamar Jackson. And you see it here. The Steelers get the ball back 3 minutes ago in the 3rd quarter, and then some good things start to happen, but they still didn't quite materialize the full way.
Yeah, the defense, it's really cool whenever the Steelers defense starts feeding off of its own energy, and you could kind of see it come to life towards the end of the second half, end of the 3rd quarter, throughout the 4th, where Highsmith was humming, TJ was humming, Quan Alexander playing with such high energy. Love seeing that. And then the more pieces that come together on the defense, it's like only good things can come of that. You see a sack here, a stuff for a loss there, and then boom, Joey Porter interception. So if they can find a way to replicate that kind of energy every game, this defense can be really good. It's just when they get in their own way and seemingly forget how to tackle, that stuff goes awry. Stuff goes awry.
Yeah,
like we saw versus the Texans. Like Texans, you look at the Texans tape and the Ravens tape, we're looking at 2 different defenses.
Yeah.
So whatever they need to do to keep themselves up at this level of like high energy, keep doing it, because against the Ravens in the second half, they looked like a way better defense than we saw in the first half.
Yeah, there was a couple different things with that too. I think I got to look at some snap counts here, but I'm going to finish up with that about what the offense and defense can do differently, and as well as special teams. We're getting right about to that point. The Steelers get the ball back. You had Najee cook it a little bit. 5-yard run, 6-yard run. Kenny Pickett finds George Pickett's down the field. Now they soften him up a little bit, 23 yards, because they're sitting too forward. They just think they're going to be too complacent. Najee gets stuffed for 1, but then Kenny goes back, finds George Pickett's again, 13 yards. It's starting to fire up. Jalen Warren, 3 yards. 2nd and 7, Najee gets stuffed for nothing. They tried to go right tackle. It didn't work. Kenny gets sacked here. This could have been the one I was talking about before with Patrick Queen and Jason Madubuike, but I can't recall for sure. Brad Wing, nice little punt, 42 yards, gets it about the Baltimore 20. There was a penalty on the first play. Baltimore gets backed up 1st and 20. So now you're starting to think, oh, geez, you know what, man? We're sitting here in this game. It's 10-3, and they still haven't been able to generate. I mean, they got a little bit of offense going, but not much. We're still playing this, little nickel dime chunk field position. At some point, something's got to give. It's 10-3. Can we get a field goal at the very least? Get some points on the board. It's still within reach, but it feels like classic Mike Tomlin. We're going to grind this out. And it's like watching paint dry almost, right? But
you worry about the game eventually slipping out of reach.
Yes.
I appreciate Tomlin being able to keep us in it in games like these, but every game has its turning point, its breaking point. And I thought that point was when Gunner fumbled the punt away. Thankfully, it wasn't. But that's the only issue with keeping it tight like this and not doing anything on offense, is you're kind of just waiting on the edge of your seat for that other shoe to drop and the Ravens to just like score a long touchdown. And like I said, that almost happened. Thankfully, it didn't. But I was happy in the moment that we were in the game. But that fear was very much alive in my head that at any moment here, the Ravens can just pop off one big play and we're going to be too far out of this thing.
Absolutely. Right as this was all transpiring following the punt, they decided to turn the board black. I had a very cool older couple Ravens fans that were actually sitting next to me. Guy knew ball. Like, he was cool to talk to. Like, he knew as much about the Steelers as you do with the Ravens. He was talking about coaching. He was talking about, like, backups. Why are we doing this? Oh, he was hot about that 4th and 2, too. Like, totally hot over it. So,
oh, yeah. Can you imagine us?
Yeah, I know. And, they put Renegade. They just start to play Renegade. And I was totally underwhelmed by it. I'm like, why are they playing Renegade right now? And trying to explain this to... I've mentioned the girlfriend a few times here. She goes to the game. She hadn't been to a regular season game. She hadn't experienced Renegade, but this game had sucked up to this point. And it's like, well, is this the big stop they really need? And I mentioned to my cousin who's sitting with me, he's like, why are we playing it here? He's always negative Nancy, right? And I made a smart ass remark. I'm like, when else are they going to play it? Like, because if they end up scoring here, you're going to play it when they're down like 2 scores for a big stop. Like, this might be it.
Play it while we're still alive.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's get an opportunity here to maybe play it now, because they might not get another chance the rest of the game. So,
end up like the Niners game where they didn't play it once.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, like they needed that in the first quarter. But I remember, what's her name? Brooke Pryor, that does the coverage for ESPN for the Steelers. And she had said like maybe 2 years ago that she had thought Renegade was dead. And all of a sudden, like, it's like, I don't know, like this little magical thing. I mean, you can't count it all the time. I don't know if it's superstitious or what, but they play Renegade. And all of a sudden, like, everything kind of turns on its head, right? Not the way that you were expecting it to. You had the offensive penalty, so the Baltimore's backed up to their 10. It's 1st and 20, and you're like, okay, how are they going to blow it here? Are they going to blow this again? And Justice Hill gets tackled. Okay, just 4 yards. So 2nd and 16, and Jackson goes to try and find Justice Hill on a little like screen pass, and he gets blown up once again by Quan Alexander. They lose 5 yards here. Now it's 3rd and 21. This place is going absolutely nuts. Jackson has a keeper. Cole Holcomb is there ready for him. Once again, inside linebackers. The corners are doing their job. He can't find anything. You're getting pressure from the rest of the defensive front. They got a punt. Your dude, you've mentioned this so many times. What is he? The punt block god? What do you want to call him?
Punt block god, Miles Killebrew, man. He's done it like 4 times since we got him. I'm surprised that isn't getting more attention from like national circuits.
Yeah.
It's not hard to look up. If the Steelers have blocked a punt in the past like 3 years, it's been Miles Killebrew 9 times out of 10. The guy is so good at it. He is a special teams demon, punt block god.
You remember Calais Campbell with the blocked field goal or extra point or whatever it was last year, and it was like, how do you not just block that guy? That was the comment. It's the same thing. Look for 28. He seems to get out there and he makes these plays.
I really appreciate him because he's a guy who understands his role. He's a team player. He's a good locker room guy, good community guy.
Captain
he's
too.
Not looking for a starting defensive spot. He just knows that he's really freaking good at punt block and the other special team phases as well.
Yeah. He's a special teams captain as well. So the Steelers, this ends up Rodney Williams just called up, right? And because of the injury the injury to Pat Freiermuth, they needed an extra tight end, an extra body, somebody play special teams. And he nearly recovers this inbounds. You're like, oh man,
brother, that's as close as it gets.
I know.
His elbow was in. It was because his forearm that's attached to the elbow, obviously. it all touched the white at once. It sucked. It was like, dude, it was inches away from being a touchdown. Not that it ended up killing the Steelers, but you wanted that touchdown so bad. But regardless, seeing a punt block minutes after Renegade works. Anything else in this world that's really good, really exciting, really fun, there's going to be moments in time where there's chinks in the armor. And yeah, I know the Buffalo Bills, the year with Duck Hodges came in and they used it against us and they practiced with it. But I mean, almost every time Renegade works to a certain extent.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. I was mind blown by all this. I just see, I love when the crowd all does it like in unison, right? You got your hands over your head and you're like safety. Yeah. Safety. Like, it's almost like, it's like Baby Shark almost like do. Like you could do that at the same time.
Or the I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah. That's pretty good too, man. Steelers hopefully get to cooking. You had a 3-yard little pass out to Najee Harris. Now he's in the pass game. You're trying to stretch these guys out, keep them from breathing down your neck. Then he goes right tackle. Like, why are you running to the right? Kyle Hamilton stops him, loss of a yard, 3rd and 8. And you already feel like, man, you had this big play. You had, you had this free kick. And during that return when Gunnar Olszewski was in there, Brian had said he was watching Calvin Austin during warmups and he was muffing a lot of punts. So we got to make that, maybe there was a coaching call. Why was Gunnar back there and not like somebody else, Desmond King or Gunnar, like Gunnar's in there instead of Calvin Austin. And it looked like he had the whole left side of the field, just no vision. Like, I'm telling you, if that was Antonio Brown out there, prime Antonio Brown returning that off of the safety, off that free kick, that was probably a TD. That's going to the house. Like, their coverage, there was like 1, maybe 2 guys to beat, and he probably had some blockers, and he just couldn't cut the other direction. So, Steelers get the ball back. It doesn't seem likely, but Jalen Warren, 23 yards. We're mentioning him again. 3rd and 8, first down, right end. Comes off the right end, 10 yards. That might have been the hurdle, too. Up the middle. Jalen Warren again, 16 yards. The run game is moving. Then he gets up the middle on a 1st and 5 and stop for 2. Incomplete pass to George Pickens. This was at the Baltimore 7. So Jalen Warren gets stopped in the goal line offense. George Pickens unable to bring it in with Arthur Molest. Like, this is what I was talking about. Are you just letting they're just letting guys play because Mollett never looked for the ball. He was so handsy. He was all over Pickens. Pickens once again in the red zone, unable to come down with a touchdown. Then Allen Robinson appears. Maybe you had a better vision of this, replays and stuff at home. It looks like he fell, or I'm not sure what happened there, but Robinson looked like he should have been open for a touchdown there. And the Steelers still just can't get that play. But
yeah, he fell down. He fell down, and Kenny put the ball right where he wanted to be, actually, because if he wouldn't have fallen down, Allen Robinson would have caught that ball crossing the goal line, like right above his face mask is what it looked like, right above his head. He falls down, making it look like Kenny threw it too high. But anybody watching the television broadcast or even at the game, you could see Robinson fell down. And it sucks to see. Like, I get it. Kenny's played bad this year outside of the Raiders game and outside of the final, like, 6 or 7 minutes versus the Ravens, where he rose up to the occasion and was Kenny clutch for the Steelers. But some people are starting to take his poor performance in other games, and it's dwindling their patience away for him, because he had nothing to do with the failures in the red zone during that series anyway, because he put the ball where you want it to be for a guy like George Pickens to make a contested catch over Arthur Mollett, who's like my height, and they didn't call the defensive pass interference. He was completely turned at George Pickens, didn't play the ball at all. You don't want to root for penalties, but I will make the excuse for Kenny. That wasn't on him. And then Allen Robinson straight up falls down. And people are on Twitter like, Kenny ain't it, dude. Kenny can't get it done. Kenny can't deliver the ball. I'm like, man, he is missing throws, but you got to look at it with an open mind and critique the other players when they make the mistake. He's a quarterback, so he gets the brunt of the blame and the brunt of the blame and the brunt of the credit. But when it's not on him, that's all I'm asking of people. Like, we're stuck with Kenny for the duration of this year anyway. And that's not a reason to just blindly root for him and support him, but try to keep that mindset whenever he makes a good play or whenever something goes wrong on the offense that isn't his fault, you know? And that was the case for that red zone series, is when people like had seemed to have had it with Kenny at that point. And I'm like, guys, that wasn't on him. And it didn't take long for him to come through in the end and help win the game for us.
Yeah. So disappointingly, it just seems like you're on the 7, you have to kick a 25-yard field goal. It's now 10-8. That's like, what kind of score is that? That's not even
That's
really
so Ravens Steelers.
Yeah, it really is. And you're just like, can they get 2 more points somehow? Like another safety, we're going to tie it. But a field goal, I mean, now you're within like, okay, this Matt Canada offense, they might be able to crank out and allow Boswell to hit a 50-yarder or something at the end of this game. And that's kind of where the way you were angling. The Ravens get the ball back, 7 minutes remaining in the game. Lamar Jackson tries to find Zay Flowers. He couldn't hook up. He gets a 7-yard connection with Odell Beckham Jr., but Justice Hill gets stuffed for a 1-yard gain by a Landon Roberts, who came in like a missile. And Justice Hill is a very bulky back to bring down too. I mean, both of those guys really are, Gus Edwards and Justice Hill.
Dude, you could combine the goods of a Landon Roberts, Quan Alexander, and Cole Holcomb into one singular linebacker. That guy'd be all world.
Yeah, he really would be. Maybe he's like Fred Warner. Like, Fred Warner was all over the place for the Niners in that Sunday night game. So here you go. Steelers are going to get the ball back. They force a 3-and-out, down 3. They might get some decent field position, and Gunnar Olszewski fumbles. And you're just like, that's all you're praying for, is that this guy doesn't make any type of critical error the whole way. I was trying to figure out why he's still on this roster. Steelers just, who'd they pick up? Denzel Mims on the practice squad? Like, they've had Diz Fitzpatrick called up. Deontay Johnson's going to be back in the fold soon off of injured reserve. Like, there is no reason, I think, to continue on with Gunnar Olszewski in any capacity. Like, just use Desmond King, use Calvin Austin, whatever be the case. Somebody's got to be back there that's better than that, because he's lucky he gets bailed out. I saw some Twitter thing where he was going to buy Joey Porter Jr. a gift or get him a gift or something like that. But this was pretty
game check.
Yeah, this is pretty disheartening.
That's what you should give him.
Yeah. Because like I sit in the one like corner end zone. So when I was talking about Allen Robinson, like everybody sitting there couldn't necessarily see it because it was all the way on the other side for me. I have to watch like the replay. But this one, it was just like, I'm watching this. I'm like, I'm surprised they just didn't keep pounding the ball for the run. They tried to find little like shovel pass to Mark Andrews, and that got stopped. Quan Alexander was right there just waiting for it. And in a lot of the other passing situations, it was Patrick Peterson that was manning up, like on the tight ends. Now, I won't say Mark Andrews is like a burner by any means. So Patrick Peterson, 33 years old, he could certainly be a guy that's big enough. You don't have like a mighty mouse like Mike Hilton. Now you got a very like nice sized corner that's a veteran player. And if he could get the intricacies of playing like maybe a hybrid, playing like a dimebacker or something, the guy's already got a Hall of Fame career. So I'm going to be excited to see that. But this is where it's headed to. Baltimore takes a timeout. They're trying to get everything right. They did not like what they saw with the Steelers formation down there on 3rd and 5 from the Steelers 5. They try to test the rookie, Joey Porter Jr., and guess what? You come after him, Odell Beckham runs probably for whatever, $13-15 million that they're paying him, probably one of the laziest routes. Porter was hungry. He out-hustled him. He manned up. He took the ball, and there you go. He said, nope. Ravens end up with more points left on the field. Steelers get the ball back by virtue of a touchback on their own 20. And, of course, they run the ball, and Najee gets just 1 yard. So now you're like, okay, is this team going to be able to do this?
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking, don't ruin it. Please don't ruin it, guys, because you talk about going from high to low to high. They punt that ball to Gunner. We're all sitting at home laughing like insane people, like, oh, what's going to go wrong here with Gunner? Dude, the guy has never done anything good for the Steelers the entire time he's been here. Gunner's best play as a Steeler came in preseason when Mitch was the starting quarterback, and with the quote-unquote starting offense, he scored a touchdown. That's the best thing Gunner has done his whole career here, and this guy somehow still has a roster spot. We are all deathly afraid of this guy anytime he's on the field doing anything. He always screws something up. The fact that he has a job, it's worse than Canada, man, because this guy is easier to get rid of. So please get rid of Gunner, because the emotional roller coaster that the Steelers put us through in that final 10 minutes is unlike anything I've ever felt before watching a football game. Okay, we have a chance. No, we don't. We're screwed. I hate this team. I'm telling you, I was so low and so bad that when Joey Porter picked that ball off, I didn't even move in my chair. I was slumped over, and I was like, great. Okay, actually, it is great. I had to hype myself up after we got it, because I was still in the mindset of just despair and just disappointment about what had transpired before the interception. But Porter made a great play. As I alluded to, he's this team's best cornerback. He ran Odell Beckham's route for him. I heard a fake quote going around that has already duped a bunch of people, but Joey Porter Jr., there was somebody on Twitter that said he told Odell Beckham to go be a family man after that interception. It was fake, but I've heard national news circuits run with it and say it. So that's going around now.
Wow.
And probably because of his dad. Joey Porter Jr. doesn't seem like a guy who's really trash talky, but because of his dad, that's an easy thing to read and believe.
It's like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree,
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain that to somebody that's newer to football or doesn't follow the Steelers in depth, that, girlfriend's sitting there watching the game. I'm like, you got to understand, this is like a legacy Steeler. His dad played here and was one of the sacks leaders, and now they bring, the kid in, Junior,
and he's good,
and now he's and then he makes a huge play like that. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I can't even imagine the pressure of having to wear your dad's name on the back of your jersey in the same place where your dad was a star. Maybe not a Hall of Famer, but definitely a franchise grade, a Pro Bowler, maybe even All Pro if I look up Porter. Maybe one of those seasons he would have definitely been an All Pro, because
definitely. I think the heyday 2003 to 2005. I think that's when he was racking up some All Pros, because he was so good during that the Super Bowl 40 era.
02.
02?
Yeah, it was 02 with believe it or not, you don't believe this sometimes, but it wasn't even a double-digit sack season. He only had 9 sacks, and he was All Pro second team in 04 and 05, where he had 7 sacks and then 10.5.
That's what I was thinking
and
of.
He finished his career in Pittsburgh with 60 sacks. So he was one of the guys that are up there on that list, and then played 5 more seasons, 3 with the Dolphins, and then and he had 32, Cardinals. And then the Cardinals, 32 sacks in 3 years with the Miami Dolphins. So he still had some juice left in the tank. He
was still good. I remember some fans, some of my friends I was in middle school with at the time, they weren't happy to see Porter cut. But that's what opened the door for James Harrison. So everybody won.
Yeah, and it was and with that Dolphins, a 17.5 sack season. That's just that's crazy. I'm trying to think. He had some type of AP accolades that year. He ran in, it was a comeback player of the year is what they had him in. He was behind Chad Pennington for the Dolphins, same team that year. Wow, that's really going down the rabbit hole. So anyways, back to the Steelers game. Of course, the Steelers Are they going to do something here? And you got the interception with Porter over Odell Beckham. Kenny Pickett starts to throw the ball around a little bit. He finds Allen Robinson on 3rd and 9 for a 10-yard gain, just enough to move the chains. Marlon Humphrey in coverage, and then he didn't find him on this. But you end up with like a 3rd and 4 right before the 2-minute warning. There was a deep pass once again. George Pickens, 21 yards. 2-minute warning. Steelers are now over midfield, and they're headed towards the Baltimore end zone. Maybe you're thinking they're going to get into field goal position. They're going to play this conservative. They don't want to give John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson the ball back. They're just going to try and choose the clock.
I feel ashamed of myself that I was rooting for a field goal at that point, but this is what Matt Canada has done to me.
Yeah.
We got to Boz's range, and I'm thinking, nice, field goal, here we go. We'll win by 1, get out of here. I was in shock that's not how it went. Good shock.
Yes.
But I was thinking field goal at that point 100% because of the trials and tribulations this offense has put me through.
Yeah, so you're going to try and get Baltimore to use some of their timeouts maybe. Jalen Warren runs the ball, 1-yard gain. Madubuike stops him. And all of a sudden you have Randy, and everyone thinks that Kenny's calling the plays. Maybe he is. Maybe Ben Roethlisberger told him that's what they used Randy Fichtner's name, and they've made whatever change. No, it's just like, I guess, a very standard, like, slide to protection right, something that begins a word with an R, maybe. Something
that's the most logical explanation, is it just changes protection from left to right, hence Randy and Louis.
Yeah.
But I saw some people having some fun with it. I myself said, Randy, he's saying, this guy is worse than Randy. Let's go deep, because referring to Randy Fichtner. And then somebody else said it was in reference to Randy Moss because Pickens just went deep on the play, Randy Moss style.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I think the sliding the protection thing just makes the most sense.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some type of coaching somewhere, wherever it came from. We don't have to give credit to any specific individual. Give it to everybody because they got it done. 41 yards, touchdown.
Perfect pass.
Yeah. Burned Marlon Humphrey right there. Who would have thought that? And he ends up playing that shallow because of they just baited him, and all the protection was there. The time was there. That's been the problem with trying to get downfield. Kenny hadn't had the time to be able to put a ball downfield. You got to have enough time to be able to get enough of however many step drop, get set, have a clean pocket, and then let it fly. And it hadn't been there a lot. You know what I mean?
I almost think Humphrey was expecting the back shoulder because we hit that so many times with Pickens leading up to that point that I don't think he necessarily wasn't playing as hard as he should have been playing, Humphrey. But I think in the back of his mind, he might have been thinking they're going to try to hit me with the back shoulder again here, kill more time.
We've seen this before, kind of the same thing with calling Randy out. And, this is the chess game that is between the two teams. Steelers go for 2. Just to try and make it, I guess, a little more difficult of a game here. I guess if Baltimore ends up scoring after this, then you could have kicked maybe you have a chance at a field goal or something like that to, or it would have been 60 or block an extra point or something of that nature. I mean, I'm cool with it. That wasn't necessarily the best. That play didn't end up working. Now you got Baltimore gets the ball back, 1:17 remaining in the game, and immediately Lamar Jackson finds Zay Flowers again. You're going to hear this name a lot over the years. Zay Flowers is a good pick for them. I liked him coming out. 19 yards. And then the man, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, these guys show up. Strip sack by Highsmith, recovered by TJ. These guys they're just wrecking everything. So now you're thinking all the Steelers need to do, run out the clock here. Kenny takes a knee. Baltimore uses their second timeout. Kenny takes a knee. Baltimore takes their third timeout. And then Kenny goes to kneel again, and you have an illegal formation with Chuks Okorafor getting tagged.
Chooks.
So, I mean, the Steelers are in field goal position already. They get backed up a little bit. Boswell puts on a 42-yard field goal for good measure, but the clock gets stopped. And that was 52 seconds remaining. This would have chewed off about, another 30 seconds or so.
Made me cut my celebration. I had to sit back down and refocus.
Means Baltimore, I mean, they were going to get the ball back, but now they got 49 seconds. And what are they going to do? Well, they're going to dig themselves a hole, which is nice. I'm okay with it. There was a holding penalty on Simpson, one of their offensive linemen. I think this might have been one of the guys that came in because Patrick McCarry ended up getting a chest injury and not returning. And, this is just the pressure of, what we got to watch out. Watt and Highsmith have been all over us now for the last few plays. they get a small they get some of that back, 13 yards from Mark Andrews, and then Lamar Jackson tries to find Devin Duvernay, covered by Patrick Peterson and Cole Holcomb. And 4th and 7, TJ Watt says he calls game. This is over with, and sacks Lamar Jackson. This is the way that you like to see. You like to see it end. It's almost like storybook. It's almost like scripted. Renegade comes on, and then the game just goes the rest of this way to, TJ Watt scooping up a ball here off of a Highsmith strip sack, and you have TJ Watt calling game, ended up with the sack on Lamar Jackson. Final score, weird way of getting to it, but 17-10 with a safety and some field goals and a missed 2-point attempt. There was a victory formation. That had to feel good for Kenny Pickett and company, come up with a huge divisional win. There was some adjustments that were made. Maybe we'll talk more about the adjustments since we're already up against it on this show. We had a lot to talk about, offensive coordinators and stuff. We're going to wait and see if there's any other further news on that. So we're going to table some of that. But all in all, you ended up with, let me see, Porter ended up playing about 40% of the game. Benton played 47% of the game. Those were all upticks. They're probably, if I went to look, probably records for those guys as far as their participation in the game. Good team win. Gunner almost shanked it for them. Thank you, Harbaugh, for being a moron and allowing to not kick that field goal. What else
Thank
can
you,
you say?
Lamar, for never playing good against the Steelers.
Yeah, throwing them in the dirt, getting pressured. TJ coming on big at the
Thank
end.
you, Nelson Aguilar, for not being able to catch the ball.
I tell you, and if you look at this, I mean, you're going to talk about how bad the Steelers were offensively, right? But if you look at the overall statistics in this game, the Ravens had 19 first downs, the Steelers 17. Yeah. They had 7 rushing the ball. The Steelers had 6. They both had 11 apiece by passing. Ravens got 1 via penalty. Third down efficiency, 36% for the Ravens, 40% for the Steelers. Total net yards, Steelers 289. Ravens ended up with 335. Ravens ran 2 more offensive plays. They did have an average gain of 0.6 more yards per offensive play at 5.0 than the Steelers. So they really struggled as this game came to a conclusion. Ever since they put up the 10 points on that field goal, they were held to that field goal. A fumble, turnover on downs, punt, safety, punt, interception, fumble, turnover on downs. Pretty good job by the defense containing the high-priced Cadillac of a quarterback that was Lamar Jackson.
I would say so. And you know what? I can already tell the fun police are out. They were out yesterday after the win, talking about how we still suck. And granted, some pieces do still suck, Matt Canada, but celebrate with your teammates. Be happy. Okay, the NFL season is the shortest of all pro seasons. You only get 17 games like this. The Steelers are 2-0 in their division. They're atop of the division by themselves. Right now, if the season were to end, they're in the playoffs. They're working on things. Be happy. It's not going to last long. We hope it does, but the season is short and it's a week by week league. And I don't think anybody should feel any type of shame for celebrating the first place AFC North Steelers right now. They're looking as good as we can hope with the malpractice going on the offensive side of the ball.
3 wins, all in the AFC, 2 of them in a division. They're on top right now with a chance to get better, and also a chance to get healthy. How much of an impact do you think getting Cam Hayward back soon will be? Deontay Johnson going to help too?
Team.
Yeah. I mean, put him out there now with Ogunjobi and slide Benton in on a rotation. It's looking promising. We'll say that much. Yeah, Deontay too. I'm looking forward to it, folks. That'll do it for us. Longer show, my friend. Thanks for hanging and banging with us, Zach. Bye week now, which is always tough. I don't know what to do, but we'll be back either later this week or early next week with some more thoughts.
It'd be tougher if we lost. We get to kick back and relax.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'll take that.
Absolutely. The whole way. And I don't know what else to say. I think we'll leave it at that. We uncovered every rock on this one. It was a lot better than last week where there were absolutely 0 highlights, 0 plays of the game. Now we're going to have a whole handful of them. There's so many to choose from. You got to actually pick and choose. That always feels good. Steelers at 3-2 heading into the bye. Who else is in their bye week this upcoming week? Just the Packers and the Steelers. So you get to see the rest of the AFC North just to whip around. The Browns are hosting the 5-0 49ers. They don't even know if Deshaun Watson's going to be ready to go after they just had a bye week this weekend. And then you have the Bengals and Seahawks. Bengals are at home as well. And then the Ravens go on the road to play in London against the Tennessee Titans. Ouch. They had to play 2 divisional games on the road. Now they go and fly across the pond. That's rough, man. That's really rough. But hey, I don't care. Now I got to shed a tear for them. So
playing a song on the smallest violin right now for him.
There it is. Feels good. Till next time, folks. My name's Joe. His name's Zach. We encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.